Hey, something feels off. Oh, that's right. I forgot to organize the kitchen a bit. Ugh. Oh well. Why is this not my room? If you're wondering where I am, I'm currently vacationing in Orlando, Florida for my sister's volleyball tournament as I'm recording this. The hotel I'm staying at is really nice, which is probably an understatement since it's probably one of the best ones I've ever stayed at. Seriously, if you can afford it, check out Club Windham Bonnet Creek. Highly recommended. However, the other plus is that while not operated by the resort as far as I'm concerned, it is on Walt Disney World property, especially right next to Disney Springs. So what do you know, I took up the opportunity to see a movie at the shopping center's AMC, which gave me an excuse to use up those three $10 gift cards my parents bought on accident years ago, including the $15 gift card my friend recently got for my birthday on accident. I don't have an AMC near me. It's actually a repeat of last year where not only was I down in Orlando for my sister's volleyball tournament, but I also got the opportunity to go to a movie theater, which was a chain I've never been inside before, and watch a new Pixar movie. Whereas last year was Elemental,
my summer love.
This year was the long-awaited Inside Out 2. No, seriously, Elemental was announced a year before it was released, while Inside Out 2 was announced 2 years before release. I swear I wish I was making that up. Set a few years after the original film, Riley Anderson is now officially a teenager. Not only does it mean her head is starting to evolve, but it also means that she's got new emotions. Joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust are now joined by anxiety, envy, ennui, and embarrassment, making headquarters feel a little more crowded. However, to make matters worse, the new group of emotions want to take full control of Riley's head as they bottle up the old emotions all the way down the vault. Now it's up to the main five to break out and make their way back to headquarters again before the new emotions completely take over Riley's life. Pixar has been the subject to a lot of discourse over the past few years or so. Since Turning Red released on Disney Plus back in March of 2022, people have been constantly debating whether or not they fell off in quality and if they're really going to continue to hold up against the rising competition. Not to mention with 3 of the studio's films having their theatrical releases cancelled for Disney Plus, Lightyear just existing, and Elemental having the worst opening weekend in Pixar history, reputation-wise, it wasn't looking good. However, this may come as a surprise to you, but regarding the whole discourse of Pixar falling off, we've been through this before. From 2010 to 2019, aka literally last decade, Pixar was a sequel factory. They released a Monsters Inc. prequel, a Finding Nemo sequel, an Incredibles sequel, 2 Cars films, and 2 Toy Story films. You can tell that 7 IP-driven movies from one studio in a decade really threw some people off. But at the same time, there was still a lot of hype surrounding these sequels, hence why they made Pixar a lot of money. Most of them, at least. The thing is, that was the problem. They were cash grabs. As beloved as the originals are, their stories didn't really need any expanding. Why do we need Mayor becoming a spy? Why do we need a Mike and Sully origin story? Why do we need to know about Dory's parents? And do we really have to have another ending to Toy Story? 2 of them even? Okay, you had me there. Thankfully though, the decade wasn't all that bleak for Pixar, as their 11 film output that decade also included 4 originals. 2 of them were actually liked, them being Coco and Inside Out. Inside Out was universally praised when it was first released, and it went on to gross $858 million at the worldwide box office, which would be over $1 billion today. I rewatched it recently so it'd be fresh in my mind while watching 2, and I still think it holds up pretty well. Sure, there are some scenes in the first half that could come off as a bit forced, and some of the logic did make me raise a few eyebrows, but they are only minor nitpicks that don't ruin the experience at all for me. While stories about creatures working inside the human to operate their daily lives aren't anything new, Inside Out really gets creative with its world building and its message of the importance of emotions. It's a prime example of a theme that has been running through Pixar for its whole life, which is using inanimate objects or imaginary characters to tell very inspiring and human stories, and it's one of the reasons why this became a modern classic. And it goes without saying that this was probably the only modern Pixar film that actually warranted a sequel. It was built to have its storyline expanded for a few more films, going by the ending of the first film, and it wouldn't feel like a cash grab, but rather a real continuation, unlike most Pixar sequels. So, did they play the cards right with Inside Out 2? Well, yes, but only ever coming close to its predecessor. If you remember the plot I was talking about earlier, on paper, it sounds like the first film all over again with the main emotions trying to get back to headquarters while these other emotions try to function rarely but aren't successful, and there's a message at the end about being human, yeah, you can tell how this would turn some off at first, but in execution, it's surprisingly very different from the first film. For starters, the emotions themselves, but more importantly, joy and anxiety. Joy in the first film was fixated on keeping Riley happy. Her desire made her see the other emotions, especially sadness, as distractions that get in the way of her perfect vision. But by the end, she realizes that trying to be happy all the time is unhealthy and sees that feeling everything else is necessary. So I was very delighted to see that they carried that development on for 2. Sure, she still has some sort of desire of wanting a happy Riley, but she also understands what's best for her and that there are some things beyond her control. However, when anxiety shows up, she starts to feel as if she's not wanted anymore. Again, she gets that Riley can't be happy all the time, but with her growing up, Joy is understandably afraid that she matters less, even coming to terms with how when people get older, they feel less joy. Okay, that's true, but you didn't have to say it out loud. This brings me to Anxiety, whose development is very similar to Joy's from the first, where she wants to control Riley's whole life because she thinks it's for the best, only to see that holding back emotions is bad actually. Though what makes Anxiety's development stand out here is that she's made to be some sort of anti-villain. While she's causing serious mental harm to Riley, she doesn't even realize that she's in the wrong until the climax. It's actually the kind of antagonist I've grown to love recently, and I'm glad they didn't make her a straight up villain. Riley's story, meanwhile, has her wanting to fit in with a new group of kids on a hockey team, leaving her old friends behind and causing her to lose her sense of self. With Anxiety taking full control, she becomes the kind of person she's not. It's here where both Joy and Anxiety realize that they can't determine who Riley is alone and accept that Riley is going to constantly change as she grows older, but working together they can help her be her true self. As someone who shared Riley's thoughts in the past, and sometimes even now, it did kinda hit pretty close to home. Including the friend drama. Geez, saying that gives me war flashbacks to 7th grade. The other new emotions like envy, embarrassment, and ennui are very entertaining and likable. Especially envy. But unfortunately, that's all I can say about them. As much as they play an important role, I don't think they're explored enough since most of the film was focused on anxiety. I'm not saying that it should have included 100 times more of them, it's just that they could have used some more depth to have the film truly recognize their importance. On second thought, maybe 100 times more of envy wouldn't be a bad idea. Though one positive I can definitely say for all the characters equally is the voice performances. My personal highlights being Amy Poehler as Joy, Mayor Hockey as Anxiety, and A.O. Debris as Envy. Did I say I love Envy? I also want to shout out Tony Hale and Lisa Lapierre for filling in the roles for Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling as Fear and Disgust. While they did a great job with their performances, I'm still bitter that Disney didn't even bother to pay Hader and Kaling enough to come back because Disney is gonna Disney. I'm still mad at them for how they treated Elemental, by the way. And the last but certainly not least, the animation. One thing I forgot to mention when talking about my experience watching this film is that the auditorium I saw it in was a Dolby Cinema. Not only did it really enhance the sound to where I could actually feel my seat rumbling at multiple points, but the screen was also almost as massive as an IMAX screen. I will watch a feature film in IMAX. Someday. Oh yeah, the film looks visually amazing. It's not surprising for me to say that about a Pixar flick because with every new release they really step up their game, but seeing it on a much larger screen than usual really made me appreciate every detail in the animation a lot more. From the backgrounds, the colors, the character movements, and the flups on the emotion skins, it's really a feast for the eyes. I was also taken aback by the style they did with Bluefy and Lance Slashblade and how scarily accurate they made them. Like, look at them. They look like they jumped straight out of wherever they came from. Waiting on that Bluefy spinoff now, Disney. Come on, you know you want to. So I guess that's pretty much all I have to say about Inside Out 2. I can't say it's better than the first, but to be honest, that one hit me a lot more emotionally than it should have. And while 2 doesn't hit those emotional heights, I will admit that it did come really close. I'm just so glad I felt like it actually continued the story of the original less than some unnecessary add-on to make money, and if Pixar is gonna have to continue making sequels to stay afloat, I hope they learn from this film on how to do it right. If you're gonna do one, actually add something new to the table rather than just made her as a spy. For the rating, after giving it a little bit of thought, I think it's appropriate to give Inside Out 2 an 8.5 out of 10. Not as great as its predecessor, but man, it was pretty close. It also needed more envy. I'm Miyachi, and this concludes my broadcast day. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm gonna go enjoy the Florida sun now.